Okay, let's do this. So, Robert Davis is it? Well, no, let me start again. Welcome back to the Special Access Podcast, and thank you for tuning in once again. We're delighted to introduce Robert Davis to the show, and Robert is an internationally recognized scientist in his field. And after receiving his doctorate degree in '81, he conducted research, taught, and was an administrator for the State University of New York for over 30 years. He has spoken about his scientific research on the effects of toxic stimuli on the brain and sensory systems in venues that vary from national and international scientific conferences, and has published over 60 articles in scholarly journals. Bob has spoken on over 100 national and international radio shows and podcasts about his research on the extraordinary states and potential of human consciousness. He has also written 3 books entitled The UFO Phenomenon, Should I Believe?, Life After Death, An Analysis of the Evidence, and Unseen Forces, The Integration of Science, Reality, and You, and published articles based on these books in the Journal of Consciousness Studies. Bob is currently in co-production with Emmy Award-winning filmmaker Dave Beatty of Dreamtime Entertainment, developing a documentary called The Consciousness Connection at consciousnessfilm.info. And I believe that documentary is still in the funding stage, so please check out the website and help it out. Bob's website is bobdavisspeaks.com. Welcome, Bob.
Oh, it's a very nice introduction. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I enjoy it very much. You have wonderful people on it.
Thank you very much. I'll hand it over to you, John. Take it away.
Thanks, Bob. Welcome. Thanks,
Welcome.
mate. So we've really been looking forward to this face-to-face chat. We've been chatting in my private chat group for a while. You've joined not long ago. You've been really fitting in well, I've noticed. So we'll mainly concentrate on the consciousness aspect and your current project, the documentary, but also discuss UAPs, NDE, and the idea that the whole lot more is connected. But let's start off by showing the trailer for the consciousness documentary, so people can get an idea of what we want people to fund. So give me a second. I'll just share screen and we'll get this up.
What is consciousness? A quantum field? A structure in the brain? A multi-dimensional projection? The very essence of awareness that gives rise to life.
It's a mystery because we don't know what we're trying to explain.
There's people that fall into consciousness and material.
Consciousness has so many different meanings.
Consciousness is a hybrid, it's technology.
How does it connect us with our world, our universe, and life beyond?
Because consciousness interacts with our physical environment, reality. That is the missing link.
What if consciousness is a force to Earth just like gravity?
Is there a link between consciousness, extrasensory perception, and other anomalous events?
It could be a near-death experience with the beautiful white light, the interaction with many different types of entities. People have out-of-body experiences from meditation to psychoactive drugs.
And I think this is really important when you look at extraterrestrial experiencers or people that have had these peak experiences.
My daughter and I walked out of a movie theater at night. My daughter pointed up in the sky and she said, "What's that?" And it was just sitting there. It was a boomerang-shaped craft the size of a football field, a large orb telescoped open. It moved around like it was searching for something. Once you experience it, you can't go back. You know that reality is unbelievably bizarre.
And the dimensionality of consciousness is going to move us into advancing who we are as humans.
But we await the paradigm shift, which is critical in terms of our understanding the science of the subjective, integrating it with the science of the physical in order to better understand consciousness, reality, and maybe a little bit more about what life and reality is all about.
Will we break through the stigma of this science of the extraordinary and challenge the true nature of reality in the consciousness connection?
I think we're all on mute, John.
6 million views already, so that can be seen on Netflix. So the
Sure.
quality professional is there. It's a pleasure to work with him. But thank you for showing that. I appreciate that.
Okay, Dave's excellent.
No
an
problem.
excellent
Yeah,
film.
that's a great trailer, Bob. I mean, Dave Beatty, the director. Can you tell us a bit about Dave and how you two teamed up for this project? I mean, it seems a dream team hookup.
Well, it's interesting we asked that because we hooked up synchronistically, and it goes something like this. I wrote the book Unseen Forces, Integration of Science, Reality, and You about a year and a half ago. While I was writing it, I really thought it was going to be a documentary. It just felt it. I was almost convinced. I thought it'd make a beautiful documentary. If you combine all these facts with an integral whole, I think there's a very important message there. And that's what the documentary is all about. A very important message about consciousness, spirituality, what people experience, the extraordinary events and the peak experiences they have, which we'll talk about, of course. I thought I just, for the heck of it, I'm retired now. I have more time on my hands, right? So I just sent out a letter to the first film company I can find in my neck of the woods, southwestern Florida. Just so happened to be Dreamtime Entertainment. I received a reply. We spoke. We had lunch, and I didn't know who Dave Beatty was. I knew the Nimitz documentary was a remarkable documentary. It blew the lid open, and look at the outfall. It's wonderful, but I didn't put the name to that. Dave Beatty, nice to meet you. And then he says to me, "Do you ever see the Nimitz documentary?" "Yeah, great documentary. Have you?" Well, then he introduced who he was. I'd say that's pretty synchronistic. And then he says, goes on. Then he says, he said to his friend Gary Voorhees, who runs UAPX, real good dude. You're going to see him with Dave up at Mike Merbert's CE5 north of Tampa, Darby Ranch this Saturday. We're going to film there, by the way. And maybe we'll see something and capture it. You never know. So anyway, so he says, "Hey, Gary," Dave says to Gary, "you ever hear this guy called Bob Davis, Unseen Forces?" And Gary goes to him, "Have I heard of him? I'm reading his damn book, dude." So what do you make of that? Yeah, I don't know. It's meant to be and all that sort of jazz. And we're here talking about it. And that's consciousness. Is that part of reality that people are dealing with? Oh, yeah. The synchronicity abounds. What it means, symbolism, of course. Anyway, your question was what again? Tell us a little bit about Dave Beatty. Was that it? I think that's it.
Yeah.
That, and the rest is history. We're just out of the gate. We put the trailer together. We got a tremendous lineup of scientists, experiencers. If you look at the website again, consciousnessfilm.info, you can see people's names like Eben Alexander, who wrote Proof of Heaven, #1 bestseller. Diane Hennessy Powell, leading neuropsychiatrist, doing leading research at Harvard University now. Quality experimental evidence from autistic savants, which we'll discuss. She's in the documentary. Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright and Nancy Duterte, who you showed in the trailer. And as more people are interviewed, as more funding permits, that trailer will also be further developed as these things evolve in the right direction, as it will. It doesn't end there. We have Jeff Long from the Near-Death Experiencer Research Foundation, Tom Campbell, My Big Toe, bestseller. A lot of people are ascribing to the virtual reality theory these days of consciousness that maybe ties everything together. Who knows? We got him and others. Global Consciousness Project, Roger Nelson, Brenda Dunn. Remarkable lineup, leading research, experiencers, Dave Beatty's quality professional talents, his broadcast journalism background allows us to investigate with a keen insight and intelligence, as far as I can see. I'm just beyond impressed with him at all levels. And it's a pleasure working with him. So we got a long way to go. Obviously, the world dictates that funding is needed to make something, I think, quite profound. We think quite profound, that provides an important message to those interested, that there's more to reality. And I think we all know that. All of your listeners, I think, understand that. It's for the general, 6-7 billion to get on board. It's much more complex than we can ever imagine. It reminds me of just a time span that took the first time, or the time between we first flew at Kitty Hawk to when Neil Armstrong first stepped foot upon the moon. It was only 66 years. We kind of forget that sometimes. So as it pertains to the science of the subjective, the consciousness aspect of the component, which is part of the UAP, paranormal, whatever you want to call it, we often ignore that, and we shouldn't. So that's what the documentary is also going to discuss, the science of the subjective and how humanity can potentially benefit from our greater understanding of consciousness and reality, possibly for medical healing, which we'll address, ESP, and other types of cognitive, mind, spiritual, who knows? We don't even have the words to reflect what we're talking about because we don't know even what consciousness is about. And people have to understand that. And those that contend that they do are quite egoic, I think. And please don't interpret everything I say literally over the next 2 hours. It's just my 2 cents worth. I could be completely wrong, completely right, or a mixture of sense and nonsense. So it's one person's opinion. But I wrote 3 books. And my opinion is based on the research I did for the first one, the UFO phenomenon, should I believe, which I would have added a great deal to, since I wrote it about 6-7 years ago, believe me. Not about the political issues and all, but the results from the free organization, that the Dr. Mitchell Foundation that I was a member of, along with Ray Hernandez and Dr. Rudy Shield, Russ Galpone, Dr. Russ Galpone, among others. Then I wrote the book, Unseen Forces. So it included topic areas from quantum physics to consciousness to biology to psychology. I'm a more of a hardcore lab scientist dude, research scientist, electrophysiology, brain stuff, sensory system stuff. So this was a little on the fringe for me, but I always read stuff about more than curious. A closet ufologist, I used to like to call myself. I'm not a ufologist. I don't want to be aligned with that discipline, but as part of it, yeah, without question, but also consciousness studies, also quantum physics studies, other disciplines. And that's what ufology should be, a multidisciplinary approach that's not fragmented as
maybe it is everything, Bob, yeah.
Wow.
Maybe it is basically that it encircles all of those things anyway. That's where we're all we're coming full circle ourselves, and we're starting to realize maybe ufology, the whole phenomenon side of things is the same thing. That's where we're at the moment. I think that's where the community
yeah, and we can only speculate that might very well be the case. I agree. I tend to lean in that direction, but we know so little about the phenomenon in general, all of them, from ghosts to seeing deceased relatives to a religious being in my bedroom, to a grave that's touching me, to steering a craft, a near-death experience, God or heaven. It could all be one of the same. Could be a phenomenological aspect of the brain that we'll figure out 200 years from now, or there's some kind of connection with an external agent. Who knows? We can only speculate, and that's partly fun, entertaining, of course. I think that also increases our awareness just by talking about it as you gentlemen do, and I applaud you tremendously for doing what you do. this alone is helping to shift the paradigm, get us out, as I say in other shows. I hate to be overly redundant, but it's some what I think is important to share. Those that may not have heard my 2 cents, for whatever it's worth. Newtonian physics can't explain it. We can't expect it to. And we await that paradigm shift. And the thing is, we have a disconnect here. Humanity, millions of people are having peak experiences, from UAPs, as I said, to near-death, psychoactive agents, you name it, meditation, the range goes on and on. William Shatner going into space, guess what? That was a peak experience. You want to know what a peak experience was? Look at him. I mean, he was happy to see Spock in that movie, when you thought he was dead. But this thing really knocked his socks off, right? I'll tell you, that's a peak. His viewpoints, beliefs about life, I don't think are ever going to be the same. Everybody should do that. That's not a unique idea. That's like a peak experience, if I may say. The overview effect. Edgar Mitchell talked about it, the epiphany, as I'm sure your listeners have heard about it. But that's a good example of another type of peak experience in the sense that it comes in all shapes, sizes, forms, so unique to the person. Maybe some people will go up to space and say big shit and drink a beer and thinking of nothing of it. Whereas I think most people would view Earth in a much different fashion from that moment forward, and with fierce determination try to do something to save it. When you see it from above, that little blue dot in space, so to speak, that's Star Trek. That's the real Star Trek, man. Everybody should do that. I think everybody should have, and that's one way. Can't do it now, but eventually it'll happen, and that's going to increase awareness right then and there. The point is, a peak experience is a good thing. You don't want it to knock your socks off. How? Greg comes into my room, and now I realize that there's other beings in the world, and I'm not my body because I'm on a spaceship. That kind of story that you hear from a very sane individual. Well, what do you do with that? I've heard too many stories. We all have heard so many stories like that. Come on, in all media forms. Some nonsense, some not nonsense. You figure out what's the real deal, right? After the hoaxes, confabulations, mind plays, and everything else involved, the disinformation that we deal with, which is why I'm turned off the audio ufology, but I love it at the same time. What am I saying? I lost my train of thought, but where was I? Help me out here.
Let's ask you a question then, Bob.
Yeah, good.
No, let's ask you a question then. I mean, and you already said we can't answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is consciousness? Can you give us your personal best assessment of what you currently think it is?
You want me to give you my opinion today?
Assessment.
Today.
Yeah, today's assessment. Yeah. You're
going to have me back on your show, aren't you? I'll give you a different kind of BS at that time, of course. Listen, we know thousands of scholars far smarter than I over the centuries have talked about consciousness, right? How many papers have been written, the lectures from Plato, Socrates? What the hell do I know? Nobody. And the point is, we still don't have an answer after all that. And that says something. And to me, you know what it says? It says to me this. It said that I'm conscious, you're conscious, we're all conscious, right? So how do you define it? You're just trying to define yourself. That's impossible.
Awareness.
I think, maybe I'm wrong, but that's, it's kind of metaphorical, symbolic. Maybe consciousness is, the answer is this. Right in front of your face, but in a 3D way. We're inhibited by the brain. The brain evolved here, so it's good at 3D stuff, right? Materialists say right out of the primordial soup. So it's designed for it. It's pretty good at it. It's a quantum process. It probably integrates with quantum processes externally too, and with torsion. The theories of torsion energy, spin forces, and the brain may very well interact with it. What does that mean? What does that mean for consciousness, brain integration, interaction? How do you prove it? Obviously, and I'm not saying that's a fact, but people are looking at that, like Diane Hennessy Powell and others, Gary Nolan, who I've spoken with about his interesting research at Harvard, and all of them. that aside, that's been quite stimulating. So what do you do with that? Consciousness is something that's fun to talk about, but frustrating, like UFOs and all phenomena, because it's a very subjective experience. We don't know how to quantify it using Newtonian physics, and we looked at quantum mechanics thinking that might provide answers, and I think it does. I see clear parallels between theories in law of entanglement and superposition as it applies to the human experience. And I think many of us realize that. But after doing my research for those 3 books, which I was alluding to earlier, and I forgot my train of thought, it forced me to look at the evidence across these various disciplines, from quantum physics to paranormal, everything in between. And I tried I applied the kind of chess strategy that I like to utilize, because I enjoy doing that, trying to make sense of the pieces that I see in front of me and win. To me, so the answer to me is consciousness exists everywhere, not a unique idea. Likely derived, facilitated by a brain that can have a resonant bond with an external force that's yet to be defined. Some people seem to have an antenna built in. It seems to be more prone to psychic skills, ESP, calling down UAPs during CE5, as people contend. Hope we have some luck. We have some good antennas there too. Why can't some people have remote viewing capabilities, others don't, trainable, some not, all that sort of stuff. How come Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, as I mentioned earlier, talk about consciousness? One way to explain consciousness is here it is. I just talked with her. Me and Dave Beatty spoke with her because she's in our documentary discussing film-related matters and her theories on torsion energy, things like that. She wrote a book, The ESP Enigma, and she talked about her research with Haley, an 8-year-old who is, and I mentioned this on other shows, again, I apologize for any redundancy, close to 100% accuracy on ESP-related tasks. What shape, what color, okay, go figure that. I certainly have more than faith and trust in the validity of Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell's results, believe me. Harvard, John Hopkins, remarkable vita. And she still has a long way to go in terms of contributions, both in the documentary and in science, as well as patients. So she says to me and Dave, oh yeah, I mentioned this. I know a 4-year-old autistic savant. We're talking autistic savants, right? Unique individuals who have extraordinary skills in some areas of music, math, whatever. Can't figure that out. So, oh yeah, I'm a 4-year-old autistic savant. She speaks 6 languages. Mm-hmm. What's that, Diane? Yeah, I have an autistic savant. She can speak 6 languages. Oh, and that's not too bad, right? It's that consciousness. Now, it's coming from, Diane Hennessy Powell. You get these bits of information, much anecdotal, not in the scientific literature, but you need to get out there, talk to the experiences, people who interact with it. How do you better know? I'm an experiencer, but I haven't messed around in the UAP with the gray, all that sort of stuff. But I've had my unique stuff, enough to maybe, hopefully, I think, shift me a little bit up. But I got a long way to go. Everybody's at a different level. But again, as I forgot to mention earlier, we have that wide gap between the subjective and science. What do I mean? Subjective people, I think, are having more peak experiences now. And talking about it. The media, things that people like you, too few in number, are doing, that's elevating people's consciousness. Just simply making people more aware. Hey, guess what? Things are pretty complex, and we really mean it. We got a little science to it, but we can explain some of the wild stuff you're experiencing. The downloads, the interactions, the stuff you believe beyond the back, but like the back of your hand, that's extraordinary. You can't figure out, causing anxiety, depression, quality of life is just up in the air because of it. You're having a spiritual emergency, right? That's consciousness too. It's part of the whole deal. It's wild how complex this is. That's why you talk about these different related topics, but it represents a complexity of what we're getting at. That's why we need people from different disciplines to address it. We need the hardcore physicists and astrophysicists, the pilots, you name it. I applaud all the researchers who try to figure out the kinematic behavior of these darn things. There's a physical component indeed. There's also a non-physical. And that's my view of that. Is it an aspect of consciousness? It seems to be. What is consciousness? I don't know. I used to think it was free will. I could dictate my future. In part, that is. But again, the brain evolved here with its 3D thing. And then when people have these kinds of experiences, especially leaving the body, as they say, I never did that, through NDEs especially. And with COVID, more people are, unfortunately, 5-6 million have already died from it. And I can only imagine also the higher incidence of NDEs. You think about that.
Yeah.
As a result, people are reporting or believing there's another realm. There's an alternate universe. Are they seeing a different world or seeing this world differently is what I asked. How many, 200,000 people in the United States alone have an NDE, let alone worldwide. During COVID, I mean, come on. And nobody's doing the research, but you obviously makes sense, of course. What's it doing? Unfortunately, it's bringing them close to death. That's a downer. But they survive and they come to the realization that there's a lot more. A heck of a lot more. And whether or not it's imaginal, brain-based or not, it's very consistent among millions. We all know the story. I don't want to get into the details. Read Moody and I forget his name. But so the point is, people are waking up in so many different regions biologically, peak experiences and all the manifestations, and social networking. Oh my gosh, all the Facebook pages. Everybody's home meditating more in the past year and a half, meditating more and maybe doing yoga more, whatever it is that turns them on and elevates their spirit, lets them internalize a little, possibly gain more insight, communicate with other like-minded souls, listen to dudes like you who are lit and that are doing such a justice to people. I can't begin to tell you. You're doing light work of stuff. I don't know what you do the rest of the day. I assume it's darn good stuff, but this is what it's about. I commend you.
This.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
15 hours a day, mate. 15 hours a day. 7 days a week. Yeah.
How many hours?
Yeah, I work from home. I get up early. I do my job.
Yeah.
15 hours a day, I do this. Researching. Trying to find out what the hell's going on. This is my life.
Well, it is crazy. You get consumed by it. It's easy to get obsessed by it. It's even religious in nature. We all get neurotic by it, but because we're frustrated and we know there's more. It's that knowingness. It's like an animal. It doesn't have to sense with
you've got it.
The same senses we have. But what are they sensitive with when they sense a predator a good distance away, doesn't see, hear, smell, nothing? They know. They know. We can learn from them. In fact, we're doing studies about certain species who seem to show that capability. How come they know? Maybe we should know too. If there's a predator on 42nd Street, down the block, then maybe I think I'll walk that way to our advantage. Yeah. Eventually we may figure that out, that ability to know, especially when it's a survival mechanism, when that is on the line. Don't walk on that bridge or whatever it is, So, and then people start becoming more aware they have more synchronicities, like I have with Dave Beatty. Dave Beatty's having a lot more synchronicities. It comes with the territory. We all know. And Jung's right. The simultaneous presentation of timing and meaning that is influential to the person. Beyond coincidence, of course. Here's a story. Maybe you've heard this. Noted, well-documented case of Jared Diamond. Again, anecdotal. But what does this mean? Consciousness. Synchronicity is an aspect of that. Carl Jung, who coined the term and described the phenomena that we all know about. Something beyond chance. A student who was writing a dissertation wanted to talk to somebody named Jared Diamond. He was a researcher in a particular area, and he thought he'd email him, but at the last minute decided not to. He regretted it very much. So he didn't write Jared Diamond. So he decided instead to take a vacation. He goes from a remote island in Indonesia. And then when he lands, take another boat and 27 miles, that kind of thing. He checks into a econo thing, whatever. He starts writing his name in the logbook, and right above his name, Jared Diamond. And he turns around, and there's a gentleman sitting right there who is Jared Diamond. He starts talking with him. Now, is that 100% accurate? I don't know. Good source, very good source. I can quote you, but still, it's a source. Anecdotal doesn't mean anything, but just makes it good, kind of interesting story. That's an example of the synchronicity. Is that chance? Could that, maybe I could win $10 million in the lottery. Maybe that's also the same odds, and that's possible too. You understand? But maybe things like that do happen naturally, as crazy as that might sound, or there's more meaning there. But there's a lot of meaning to the guy that experienced it. That alone is something. How the hell does this happen? The point is, we question reality when a knocks us knocked off, whether it's going up into space for the first time at 90 years of age, or being woken up by almond-shaped eyes right in your face, collecting sperm. I mean, come on. What's going on? It's like I mentioned this. Reverend Michael J. Carter. Do you know him by any chance? He's a minister, experiencer,
No, sorry.
Beautiful person. About ancient aliens on that documentary a lot. On all the shows, would be a wonderful guest for you guys. Really, really, Reverend Michael J. Carter. I've talked to him several times. Beautiful soul. And I said to him, Mike, I'm zooming with him, Mike, I wish I could be convinced that UAPs are really real, 100%. I'm a crazy scientist. I try to be objective. I know all the evidence out there. It's still not 100% unless I experience it, unless it's real like the back of my hand, like people believe. Yeah, I'm not there. I don't know if I want to be right now, but I've had enough socks knocked off, for a while, at least. Wait till the documentary's over, then give me one of those interactions. But I'll hold off for now, right? What am I saying? Well, I'm losing my train of thought.
You were telling us about the Reverend guy.
Yeah, so Mike is, I'm sorry, I'm very tired right now. So I said, I wish I could be 100% sure. So he said, Bob, a gray touched me. All right, Mike, how you feeling? What'd you do the past few hours? Psilocybin, mushrooms, what'd you do? Bob, a gray touched me, Well, as I mentioned, he's more sane than I. Again, not saying much, but the point is, I don't doubt him. I don't need to have a polygraph on him. I don't need this year's version of a mental battery by a diagnostic battery by the leading psychological test association. He's cool. He's lit. He gets it, and a great touched him. And even if a great didn't touch him, the fact is he knows a great touched him, and maybe that's what reality is all about. And maybe that's what consciousness is all about. He knows it did. So his life in the future is going to be dictated by that. Wow, great touched me. What does that mean? That means there's other life forms. That means reality is different. It means I'm not my body. So people start questioning these. Understandably, how can you not? A cork, as we say, is out of the bottle. It comes naturally. When somebody's chasing me, I'm going to run. When I see a UFO or NDE, I'm going to have a reaction, and it's going to be a more conscious one, a consciousness-based one. Let's use that term because everybody does, but it's going to alter my viewpoints. What are you talking about? Your concept going to alter whatever that is. It's going to alter my personal belief system, values, even religious beliefs. Maybe the one you love, as deep as that. Going forward, everybody's different. Can't predict. It depends on a lot of variables: personality, type of event.
Bob, can I just ask you? Can I just ask you this gentleman? Then he said Gray touched him. Did he actually believe it was a Gray, or did he believe it was a messenger from God? You said he was a reverend. Did he believe it was an angel? What was his perception of this Gray?
He didn't elaborate, but he has written a few books on the relationship of evidence in biblical text and the UAP experience. He brings it down to the subjective level in both cases, as well as just the experiential, anecdotal evidence as reported then, with that up today. And you can certainly make a good case. I don't think we need to go into detail, but that's where he's coming from. This is nothing new, and we probably are dealing with some kind of phenomenon, intelligent as it may be, one or more. Who knows? We're speculating, obviously. That's been here since the brain evolved from that primordial soup, or was constructed by some computer person in another dimension who's controlling us, or something in between. You go figure that out, or combination thereof. So I don't know. I'm sure it has something to do with it. It seemed to be a major influencing factor, but he's had many experiences. That might have been maybe the whipped cream on the cake. That wasn't the first time. So, he's trying to do the same thing many individuals are doing, coming out of the closet, so to speak, and saying, I'm not going to tell the whole world the great touched me, but he did. And I congratulate him. I was afraid to say I saw a UFO to my colleagues, back at college. Then I started writing books when I got rid of that. But yeah, once you see it, though, right? Some people go into something quite different than their current career, of course, or get a divorce. Like 70% of those that have near-death experience will get a divorce within 7 years. I can only imagine what it is for those that have UAP experiences. They're lit, they're changed, they question reality, they want different friends, all that sort of stuff. It's a transpersonal experience. That's consciousness. Consciousness is everything. And that's a dramatic form of peak experience, because it's life-altering. And how many people have you spoken to? Like even the pilots that interact with it, from Foo Fighters, the chariots in the Bible, Ezekiel's wheel, to Tic Tacs now. I'm sure it's leaving more than an impression on those that are playing around with it. Are we staying one step ahead in one way or another? But I hope they don't take something home with them. It seems that people are moved by it, sometimes spiritually and sometimes in the form of terror. Mike had a very positive effect. And when I was a member of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Research Foundation, with Ray Hernandez, I think I mentioned that, Dr. Rudy Shield, Dr. Russ Galpone, we published that article based on about 3,500 individuals who claimed to have interacted with the UAP and or its occupants. And it was published in the Journal of Scientific Exploration. And unfortunately, it is rarely recognized, cited within ufology. Here's an example of research that is very large in population, that is survey-based, and certainly limitations of surveys, but still there's a strong message there. I know very much about research methodology. It's still very, very powerful in its message, believe me. It says something significant. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but I encourage people to simply read it and to interpret it for themselves. But read it. It emphasizes the non-physical component of the phenomenon. That is certainly part of the physical. And that's where we should, I think, emphasize a little bit more attention, time, and research. That's saying a lot, I know. But free, and to Ray Hernandez's credit, Dr. Edgar Mitchell also founded IONS, the Noetic Sciences Institute. Dean Radin, who's the chief scientist at IONS, and he's in the documentary talking about his experiments, leading researcher, again, in ESP and then some. There's a lot to say. About 70-80% of them wanted their experience with these interactions with the beings to continue. The more interactions they had, the more positive they were about the experience. They didn't want it to end. That says a lot, isn't it? I mean, the first few times it knocks their socks off. How can it not? But they adapt. We know the story. We're kind of confirming things that John Mack said, the Harvard psychiatrist, as I'm sure most of your, if not all of your audience knows about. We align with much of what he said in his study of about 350 patients who.
Bob, was that those people that had this like craving to see them more and more and more after they'd had a few? Were they lifelong experiences, or were they people that had them an experience later in life and just wondering whether? I mean, I just see them, and I'll be honest with you, I saw one a couple of hours ago, okay, and I filmed it, Okay.
Yeah, tell them I say hello
It's
next time you see
normal
them.
for me. So,
Don't tell them
Yeah,
where I
so I
live.
see-
Really,
I
I'm doing a documentary. I don't want to get a little crazy here. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's cool, but we broke it down by age. Those that had experienced it for a longer period of time duration, in terms of from a younger age, were more positive about the interaction. But you would also think that the younger the age, the likelihood they'd have more interactions. So there was a kind of offsetting intervariability there. Those that had the interaction more than 10 times, I'd say about 90% wanted it to continue. They benefited from it. They learned by it. Not only did we see responses to over 600 quantitative questions. I can talk for hours about it, of course, and bore everyone to some extent. I would encourage you to look at the journal article. I'd be happy to send it to you, in fact. I shared it on our UFO chat group, and I can do it again, that article. For what it's worth, it's not nuts and bolts, but it's still important. As nuts and bolts are critical too. I hate to keep using that phrase. You know what I understand. We need it. It's a positive experience about 85% of the time, not all the time.
Were these people getting depressed when they weren't seeing them?
Were they getting depressed when they weren't?
Depression if they
I don't know.
A few months without seeing things.
We didn't ask that question. A good question. We got responses to 600 quantitative questions. Still, that's a lot of data. Summary is there in the paper. Our interpretations consistent with Valet, consistent with Hynek, consistent with McDonald. Consistent with some prior researchers. Look at the history. It's critical we do that. Not all. But yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what's your take on the on the hybrid theory? I'm particularly thinking of Dr. David Jacobs when I ask this question. Are you familiar with his work?
I have no. I don't want to talk. I'm a little familiar with work. I question hypnosis regression. I think there could be definitely value there. I don't know. I just don't know enough about it. I've read a lot about it, and the judicial system doesn't acknowledge any evidence obtained on the hypnotic regression as a valid form of evidence. That doesn't mean that's not valid. That's just their 2 cents worth. Maybe it will be someday if it can be perfected. There's just too much degree of persuasion on the part of the person doing the hypnosis, hypnotic regression, and that's not well controlled. I'm sure there's some value in it. We just don't know how, what, who, and all that. I'm not knocking it, but the point is this: Hopkins and Jacobs both presented a very, very wrong perspective. Their conclusion is incorrect. You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
It's incorrect. They regard it as largely a negative experience. No, it's largely positive. Largely, not that negative experience don't happen, of course, but 10-15% say it was held. But those that said it was a bad experience, what? The number of interaction was 1, 2, 3. You understand? It related to the number adaptation. Amazing how adaptable the human being is. At first, you want to tear your head off out of fear, a fight and all that, more than normal. But then you realize from what people say that you know more than I. What am I? I'm just relating what I'm from a researcher's perspective on the topic. We need to do a great deal more to verify the results in another population sample. Russ Galpone's doing some interesting work with Les Velez. Marcy Clevens, remarkable work. We could talk about that another time. It's related.
While we're on the fringes here, I'd like to push you right over the edge. I see that I can hear.
You're too late. It's too late.
I can see that you're very academically and scientifically minded, but your research.
Go tell my wife the opposite. I don't think she's in the book.
I would like your take on, do you think any mysticism in the past has come close to a model for consciousness that may or may not be correct? And how does something like divination, or such as you spoke about Jung a few minutes ago, Jung, or the I Ching, how does that fit into the consciousness model or problem?
It depends who you talk to. If you talk to newest, huh?
But do you think it's valid?
Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. Those that talked about it in the past, right? You're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Kabbalah.
yeah, they're talking about the same damn thing.
Exactly.
What's that mean?
I just wanted to hear you say
Come
it.
on. I mean, it's the same. It's different toys, different tech, different. I think Facebook's a little different now than it was back then. Different stuff, but the same darn thing. And we explain it differently. We interact with it differently. Explain it differently. All that sort of stuff. They're in control. The more and more I think that I can't say 100% because I trained as a crazy scientist I am. I trained under the scientific method. Published a lot of research. That doesn't mean I'm right. That means I could be very well biased by the scientific method, and I do think it is biasing. I think, to my credit, I think I'm aware that it's biasing. Okay, when most scientists are not, they stay there, and you got to shift a little, be flexible. Forget a little bit about the quantitative and incorporate the subjective, the qualitative, as I keep saying. And I apologize for the redundancy. I can be that way, and it's helped me steer me so I am not so repetitive. But once you do and close that gap between the paradigm shift or the science that we now operate under, which we love, we benefit from, we need, of course, get to the moon and beyond, blah, 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 but doesn't look at what's going on with the person who has a peak experience and doesn't know who to turn to. So they remain in a closet and suffer. We're not giving that enough attention. That's kind of more my mantra than anything else, other than, hey, if you could fund the documentary, $5, $10, a cup of coffee, I'll take it. More importantly, that would be great. Any support, of course. Spread the word of interest about what the documentary is about is more than, wonderful. Thank you all for doing that, considering that, and I see that, and that's beautiful. Where was my train of thought? Again.
Bob, do you think
mysticism? Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm falling asleep. It's been a late night on other shows. Of course, the same thing. I don't know what else we can say other than we need to explore more of the history and look at those kinds of analogies. And the question is, what have we learned from the past? Not much. And they're in control, like some researchers contend. And the more I think about it, it seems to be that way. And it upsets me because they give you a peak experience in oftentimes the most terrifying ways. And it's like a violation of free will, as some people contend. And it seems that we can't control it. I think the powers that be and the scientists that work for some of these unacknowledged access programs are well aware of the phenomena. That have been for a long time. They try to communicate with them through whatever program. Who the heck knows? The point is they know all that stuff. I'm sure they've had psychics trying to communicate with these interactive life phenomena, trying to, are you angels up there? Are you Ezekiel's wheel? Is that who you are? Can you tell me? Through using some medium, like an Ingo Swan or McGonagall, those kinds of people. And maybe I would have, like they did with it's Project Stargate. We know all about that. The Russians did the same with us. And of course, they would throw it at it. I think they know it's an intelligent life form of some type, maybe plasma-based, some another dimension. Who knows? I don't think it's from another planet, far, far away. I don't think so. It could be. It could be a projection. There's many theories out there. Here again, we're throwing things all around here. Like George Costanza does on Seinfeld. I mean, that show here in America, we have like Barney Hill, like you had, right? My dad used, anyway. So that's the best we can do, it seems. Talk about it, but to elevate the consciousness of people, which we center around, which the documentary is really about. What does that mean? The mysticism of the past reflects our current predicament. What are we? Light workers, who then were the, I don't know who of those days that would spread the word of, I don't know. What? There were people like us back then. Well, I don't know what they were called then, just like because the phenomenon was here. Some people are lit back then, some aren't. It's like, are you married to somebody who's the cork is still in the bottle? So yeah, same. As far as I'm concerned, the more I think about it, like Michael J. Carter's right. There are others who look at that, look at even the history and evolution of the UAP. I think we are familiar with that as well, from the dirigibles of the 1890s, starship, airships, to Foo Fighters, to abductees, and so to speak, the 50s, 60s, Betty Barney. They take us on a slow progression and spoon feed each generation in a different way and raise our consciousness, maybe.
Well,
maybe.
the one thing that has stayed steady is the orbs. The orbs have always been here. The orbs have never changed shape. I mean, there's even people talk about the burning bush was the burning bush an orb, passing on the Ten Commandments, and who knows. That's one shape that never seems to have changed. I mean, we see people talking about faces within orbs and beings within orbs. Are the orbs an actual entity inside them? What do you think of that? Are they beings of light?
You talk to a cognitive psychologist, neuroscientist, they'll say it's pareidolia. The brain likes to make sense of nonsense. You look at an orb, you see dots. It's like the moon to see a face. Yeah, maybe not. I've seen some orbs that look pretty dumb, human looking or weird looking. But here again, let's take it with a grain of salt. I just wrote something about interactive aerial phenomena, interactive light phenomena, that I like to call it, whatever, this week, and talking about orbs or plasma, maybe not plasma, but the point is these things, I think, are intelligent. And the point is, of course, it could be an educated guess on anybody's part, obviously, but the research that I've been synthesizing data and reading articles, trying to make sense out of a lot of information for publication purposes and all that stuff, I'm trying to apply that here, and adding a little bit of chess strategy with people involved in the documentary to make a coherent whole of the individual pieces of evidence that I feel, again, are most critical. Where's the queen on the board? To protect the king? How do I advance? How do I defend? What makes the most sense to come to a reasonable conclusion at this time in our humanity's evolution? And we're not even scratching the surface. It's going to take another long century or two before we get even half close, if that. So
then you need a series of documentaries then, Bob, yeah? You're going to make this one and you're going to have to make some more. You can't leave things out. This is the whole problem.
So, well, it's an interactive phenomena. It's plasma-based. We see evidence from research done by astrophysicists, Dr. Rutledge. He eventually came around to figuring that these were interactive phenomena that had a will, that had purposeful intention, after he studied it for a decade. And then Massimo Teodorani, again, as part of our UFO chat, good that you invited him, I believe you did, thank you. He came to the same conclusion after studying the Hasdallan lights for 10 years, 20 years. Remarkable. We described using the scientific method to a geophysical event that has down lights, and there's many places around the country, the world, that has those kinds of frequent kinds of phenomena. But the point is, how can these gentlemen come to the same conclusion despite being in different countries at different periods in time? I don't know if they exchanged notes. Read Project Identification. It's Harvey Rutledge's scenario on the matter. Here's scientists. You want to say, what's the UAP? Look at what the people that have studied it. Hardcore scientists. Not that they're right, but let's follow this step. Let's look at these orbs or light phenomena of some type. They split the divide. Einstein student, another physicist from Russia, Russian or whatever, Academy of Sciences, Tiskovitz. Both came to the same conclusion, independent of each other, that plasma, the fourth state of matter, is an inorganic life form that has some degree of intelligence. Then. Huh? What?
You don't think that they're actually probes then? Nick Cook, who's in our group as well. I'll just say, Nick Cook, well done, first of all, for getting a prize in the Bigelow Bix essay competition. So you probably watch this, so I'll get that in there quick. So Nick actually sent us some questions for you, didn't he? Did you see them, Bob, in our chat? So I've included them.
No.
Okay, so I'll ask you some of Nick's questions for you then, because it relates to what you've just been saying. Nick asks, are orbs probes or life forms? That was his first question.
I I could only speculate, but based on the evidence I'm presenting from trying to integrate some good research in the lab about plasma with some science out in the field with experiences and biologic effects on people who interact with this. Project Kindine, that who also came to the conclusion that UAPs is largely unidentified plasma and behaves like a plasma, and it behaves the same way in the sky as it behaves in the lab. Divides, splits, changes color, morphs, all that sort of stuff. So you can make a case. The question is, if it is a life form, if I'm putting the pieces together right, and please don't interpret what I'm saying literally. I'm just saying consider it. That's all. Do they collectively, in mass, as opposed to being in a petri dish in a lab or something like that, have influence over humans, interact with them spiritually, provide insight, give them a little nudge, as it appears like a fire in the sky or a tic tac somewhere off the coast of the country.
Yeah, there's another part of the question, and it's relevant to what you've just said. He asks, is there any evidence for plasma orbs morphing into other forms of the phenomena? Classic UFOs, for example, our own platforms, our jets.
I'm not aware of any.
Do they mimic us?
I don't know. If you listen to experiences, that's their guess. Although it's also physical. The kinds of impressions that people who claim when they interact with it too. Sometimes the meaning you give is the meaning you receive. They use precognition. They know what the meaning you're going to give before you even know what the meaning you're going to give. It gets philosophical, metaphorical, symbolic, but that's, I think, what we're dealing with here. We don't have the language. We don't understand it. So we're confused, and we're talking about it right now, and people actually listening to this. What does that mean? You understand? What the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
We're not nuts. You get it? We're human beings scratching their heads and saying, what the what do you say in England?
Yeah.
What the same word you use over there?
What the fuck's going
Yeah,
on?
Hey, watch
what
that.
That's
my show. It's my show, man. Be cool. You're breaking some BBC. Is that it? The rule. I know.
No,
but the point is, we're not crazy. We're I'm not going to be it's going to come across egotistical, but I'd say we're all a little bit more aware. We still got 10 million miles to go, but a little bit more aware based on experiences, and that's natural. It's not bragging. I think that's a natural reaction, maybe of the brain and how the mind, conscience interact with the brain, or torture. The wild theories from all the theories. I don't think we need to go into it. But however you want to direct it, that you think may be of greater interest to your audience. Let's go there. Otherwise, I can get heavy duty, dry. With the theory and experimental evidence, I can bore everybody to death. You tell me where you want to go, pal.
Well, I'm quite interested in this toroidal energy. And do you think that plays a part in the efficacy of meditation?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Do you think the toroidal energy, and am I correct in thinking this is the donut shape? Yeah. Do you think that this plays a part in the efficacy of meditation?
We don't have any evidence to say anything about that. I can think of a million questions along those lines. Yeah, I don't blame you for saying that. The question is it torsion energy? Is it a spin force? That's what we're talking about. And if it is, does it actually integrate with quantum processes in cells and DNA, as people are saying in the University of Arizona, the all-core theory? You want to go there? See the consciousness, microtubules, all that sort of stuff in brain cells. So what does that mean? They come to the conclusion consciousness exists forever. Because of that, it interacts with the quantum processes in the universe. It goes back to you talk about the orbs changing shape. It reminds me. Let me get back to that. It reminds me of the people forget about this. It's Soyuz 7 of cosmonauts back in, I think, in the 60s or 70s. Does it ring a bell? 5, 6 astronauts all reported the same vision. They see orbs morph into angels. They describe them as angels with wings. and they floated, they followed the craft. They'd interact with them. They can't believe it. For a long period of time. They're taking photos, you know. So, of course, I reported to whomever, and obviously they contend there's something, of course, wrong with the oxygen, whatever excuse, and it's unusual, kind of hallucination, especially when it's similar among all of them. Okay, they land. Oh, no, they don't land. They dock. Something like 4 or 5 more cosmos, they exchange. Guess what? You know where I'm going? They see the same thing. You know, go. I don't know the name of the astronauts, but I know the year. 80s. It was a Soyuz 7, mid 80s, I believe. Read about it. I mean, maybe it was, you know, somebody ate something bad for dinner. I don't know, and caused a change in the atmosphere, and it results in hallucination. But everybody, especially with a replication, unless there's any question, look into that, the validity of that. I included that in my book. But it's the anecdotal from trained witnesses that experienced independently, consistently. It's like I had a near-death, Eben Alexander, and near-death experience. Interacted with a woman who said she was his deceased sister. Gave him her name, more information about the family. Survived. Told the parents. Parents looked at each other, said, "There's no possible way he could have known this other than he had it." He met her on the other side. It's that kind of anecdotal, the subjective, interacting with an orb, morphing into an angel, or morphing into a gray, or morphing a reptilian. What kind of game's going on here? Trickster? Can we out-trick the trickster? Can we interact with a little flashlight too? You know, Morse code, or the movie Arrival, using the symbolic language of some type. That's way beyond me to figure out, and I'm sure they've done that. I don't know what energy, microwave, low frequency, high frequency, whatever. Say, try experiment. What do these lights refer to? What do they respond to? I'm sure they try to communicate it using ESP in qualified individuals to our latest technology of whatever that might be. Morse code. Send up a plane. Let's shake hands. You know, meet me Devil's Tower. What's his name? Makes mashed potatoes with his fork, you know, and Close Encounters. You know, everybody's lit. He's lit. I never thought I'd behave like that. You know that? I never thought. I get it now. It took me a few decades, but I understand. You're passionate, right? Passionate to climb the mountain, to be there. They just had to, right? They had to be there. We had to talk. I mean, that's the issue at the end, isn't it? That's the overarching issue.
Yeah. This podcast had to be created. That was the feeling I had.
Yeah, I mean, and why'd you do it? Why'd you do it?
No idea.
Why get a life? Hey, get a life. And Jonathan, get a life, and I'll get a life.
It's mashed potato, mate. It's all about mashed potato. Mountains.
Yeah, right. I think everybody should wear a T-shirt with mashed potatoes to show the passion to get to Devil's Tower. You know, 2021 version. I understand it. It's the same. You understand this? You see how it was depicted one in that movie back in the 70s, right? Steven Spielberg directed it. I know rumors. You know, Mom said he had an interaction. Who knows? Who knows? The point is, somebody knew something. People were talking about this stuff. People were passionate back then. Otherwise, it wouldn't be shown, obviously, as it was, and so popular as it was. So popular as it was for many millions, even now. It's one of my favorite movies. Come on, it resonates like The Exorcist resonates. Some movies resonate because we know there's some truth there. It's visceral. You understand? Visceral. You know, you watch somebody's head being cut off, you get a visceral reaction to the bone, to the spirit, to the consciousness, where you change a little after that. I see earth from above. I'm changed a little bit. Yeah, I'm not religious anymore. I'm more spiritual. I'm not going to give to the church. I get it. More empathetic, more humane. That's what people say. Have a peak experience. They lose ego dissolution. Ego. Yeah. Give me a pill. Ego dissolution. That's the answer. Don't you understand? You have a peak experience.
That's the real experience. You remind.
That's what's the heart of the matter here. Well, when you say earlier, kind of gets at the issue. You say, "Is it all one?" All of this stuff. It's all one in the sense that it's all like a peak experience. It's like holy shit. It's a big one, as psychologists say. Holy shit! The UAP it's doing this, that, and when it was up. You know, the whole bit, everything. How many books are written on everything, right?
Yeah.
Same, but the same outcome. people get a little taste. We said it in varying ways. A little taste. This is more. Reality is complex. It's not all about me. Maybe life is there's more to life. Maybe there's more life after death. Maybe I saw my deceased relatives. That proves it. Life on another planet. Well, the whole bit. The questioning themselves and reality. That alone lights one up even more, and it feeds on itself. Dudes like you talk about it. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But you got to do. It helps, and everybody adds a little bit. Maybe they help too. In their own way, they stimulate this, and then what? But the point is this: that gap widens. We elevate spiritually, having more peak experiences, as we mentioned earlier, being more aware of it, and our ego just dissolves to the point where we're not the center of the universe. It's only about me, man. Hey, it's not about, we all got that. We got the brain. We're inhibited by it. We're governed by it. We fall trapped. All that stuff. But we lose a little of that. That's what some people say when they do psychoactive drugs. It'll cause a little ego dissolution. Smoke some grit, a little ego dissolution, more to life. Others are more important. I got to be a little bit more humane, more sympathetic. All that sort of stuff we strive to be, and it's hard to be in 24/7. When you're more aware, from a UFO to an NDE and everything in between, you dissolve the ego a little bit, and things are better in varying ways based on personality, environments, and all that sort of stuff. But you know what I mean? That's where that's where it's all combined. They could be each individual phenomena, and they could be people from Alpha Centauri, for all I know, that's coming here, through a black hole. I'm not discounting any possibility, and everything I could be saying could be whatever. I don't care, and if you don't like it, good. Don't say
I'm sorry to interrupt you at the end of your point there. I'm really sorry.
Please do. I can go on, so I encourage you to. Please.
It's a very simple question. Have you ever done psychedelics?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I grew up
recreationally or for study?
Oh, I'll give you the details. You want the details?
Oh, wait, all of them, please.
All right, email me later. Email me later, and I'll give you the details. Next question. No. Back in the 70s, I'll tell you when. It's been a long time. I didn't do a shroom last Tuesday, if that's what you're getting at. No, I'm tempted. I'm tempted to. But I did in the 70s. No. Back in the 70s, they did in Central Park, but it was very different acid. It was heavy and really not that enjoyable. Fun for a while, but very risky, and I don't advocate that. And you should have a coach, whatever, counsel, if you're doing it for a few times. I don't know enough other than the scientific literature that supports it under controlled conditions because it's beneficial, it seems, for PTSD, severe depression. We know that. But it's also very influential in the sense that a recent study at Johns Hopkins University showed that, believe it or not, approximately 50% of atheists, about 75, 100, I believe, people who claim to be atheists, before they took, I think it was DMT or psilocybin in a microdose. Yeah. You know where I'm going? As this was in a medical journal published recently. They then believed in a supreme being. About 50% of them then believed in a supreme being after the administration of the psychoactive compound. Isn't that interesting? Now, you tell me. That's a peak experience to me. If some external agent is going to alter somebody's personal viewpoint on something so significant and pronounced as that, from that event forward, that's, call it whatever you want. That's a shift in consciousness, a realization, an epiphany, right? Whatever. It's going above atmosphere and maybe beyond. That's influential.
What do you make of, to me anyway, when I hear stories of people who've taken DMT and stories who've had near-death experiences, I find there can be a lot of overlap. What do you make of the idea that near-death experiences can be triggered by the release of DMT close to death?
Yeah, and you can make a case for it. I know, you can make a case for that because there have been a few studies done that have looked at the language of those that have described their NDE experience, near-death experience, with that of those who've done psychoactive drugs and described the essence, subjective interpretation of that event. And there are qualitative similarities in the description. However, there are also major unique differences. You see, major unique differences, such that you can't really say that each was very similar. Given that the brain is still there, you would expect similarities, of course. How can there not be under each condition? But if it was the same underlying mechanism, like pure DMT, I would think you'd get maybe the same throughout. It could be partly DMT and something else, because I don't know. See, here again, and this is where I'm comfortable. It's a great question. All your questions are right on. But the point is, we don't have the data. And I'm giving you what they know, but based on what I know. What's in the literature, based on what I incorporate in my books. They know something about it, but they don't get at it. It's scratching the surface. We need more. We need funding from the government, the federal level, and then some, to support this kind of research for the human condition, ESP, medical healing, and using mental intention, things we're talking about, applying it to understanding this multidisciplinary science that unfortunately isn't addressed in such a manner that it is, too fragmented as it is.
Bob, do you think that with near-death experience, there's also a relation with, because people see things, that I've seen things, I've had profound experiences when I've been in pain, when I've been depressed and down. I've had experiences. Do you think DMT is being released at those points, and maybe that's what causes that?
Look, it's possible. Andrew Newberg spoke with him. He's a neuroscientist at the University of Pennsylvania. He's trying to find the God spot. They're a spiritual neuron. Are we compelled to want to believe in something? Do we know that God exists innately? All that sort of stuff. DMT, we know very little about it. We know that the body does secrete it. We know that certain species do. The impact, however, I know theoretical, but it's interesting. Dimethyltryptamine, that's a psychoactive component in psilocybin, so ayahuasca is what we're talking about, and offshoots of it. People should approach it carefully, please, and get proper guidance with it if they want to experiment with it, but be careful. I know it's supposed to be very safe. I understand that, but still, you never know what you're getting on the street. That aside, there's here again. I hate to use the cop out. There are more researchers, of course, needed. They very well could be a link, because people who do have take DMT experimentally do gain that inner awareness insight. I've had that even from bad acid back in the 70s, listening to the Grateful Dead in Central Park while John Lennon was twirling a red nose and that's how I'm tired I am. A red rose in his nose every Sunday, outside where he lived right off Central Park, Dakota. Okay. Wonderful dude, great loss, but he got it. He was lit. Come on, I think he was naturally lit.
He was lit as
fuck. He was lit. There's some guys, that go into music. They naturally, if you studied his brain, you'd see the enhanced connectivity that shows that some people are more spiritual experiences, psychic. Gary Nolan, the noted immunologist and geneticist at Stanford, we spoke recently, and he talked to me about the Kude Pudeman. I know we could jumping around. I know, but I'm punchy right now. I can't. So where they have a heightened neurologic connectivity in that area of the brain, in the caudate portion of area in the hippocampus, where you gets back to your area, symmetrical. Symmetry. Remember, I kind of bypassed it, and I thought of that. Symmetry, the torsion, spin force. Everything in the universe spins, from the subatomic spinning, of course, electrons around the atom, to, of course, the planets and beyond. Everything. The point is, well, does the brain serve as an interface, integrator of spin activity? Is it designed, maybe structurally? Think about it. Look at the brain, illustration of a brain. Play around with a 3D illustration of a brain. That's your homework, okay? And you mentioned it earlier, Taurus, right? It's shaped like a Taurus. Torsion, spin.
Yeah.
I can't describe it. It's 3D. So you'll see it looks like a Taurus, especially with the stem coming down, the brain stem into the spinal column. Don't you understand? you look at it, you try to combine science, anatomy with possible other forces that are built around torsion, mathematically derived. That's it. I mean, look, we know it's the fourth state of matter, as we said. So it comprises most of the universe. So it could be something to it. Why can't we be part of it? Like our body is part of every chemical found everywhere else. Right? Maybe this energetic force that some people ascribe to, a synchronized universe model. It's called different things. Biophotons. We see again evidence of light energy being generated by DNA and cellular structures in the brain. Biophotonic activity, light energy that might represent the invisible pathway representing interaction between people, that ESP thing, that subtle effect that's only statistically seen but is real. And ESP is real. Let me say that, but don't get me started. ESP is real, subtle. It doesn't mean I could bend a spoon. Okay, some people probably can, but I can't. But it's seen. You got to look in the literature to find the answer. I've done that and then some. I talked to enough people to know it exists everywhere, and the documentary is going to be based on that, having the leading experts talk about that. Consciousness is all over the place. UAPs is part, and everything else is part. I mean, Einstein's theory of relativity, it wasn't my idea. Thomas Edison, never, not the other guy, never. It wasn't my idea. The guy with the periodic table, it came to me in a dream. The downloads, numerous examples. The song came to me overnight. How many times did Paul McCartney, Lennon, other musicians come
the
up
12-step Alcoholic Anonymous program was divined from a Ouija board, Grant Cameron.
Yeah, right. The brain does that, right? Yeah. You put the music to the notes on the page. You put the subjective. Science forgets it. That gap again widens. You see, people are having a big experience, becoming more aware. But science is stuck here. Newtonian physics. We're elevating. You understand? So the gap is widening. We need quantum mechanics integrated with existing principles. Of course, we need to. With 3D, we need to know about gravity. Everybody, we need that Newtonian physics. So the point is. We'll get there eventually, but I do see we're at the cusp because with science, I see theories and science being integrated with the experience, and that's what that turns me on with the subjective impressions that are occurring as a result of all these anomalous, enigmatic kinds of induced external events. All different shapes, sizes, and forms. The alteration of time and space, interaction with non-human intelligences, downloads coming in my head. They're not all. Everybody's not nuts. There's too many nuts walking around. I get that, yeah, but nah, this is way beyond that. Nobody looks at it. You see, I've looked at it because I'm interested. I write books on it, and I talk to people. That's the best research. Talking to you guys, you know something. You know more about it than I do, because you talk to people all the time. I read, I study, Bob, I'm a nerd.
Bob,
I say, good. Help me, get me
Bob,
off.
Do you think so?
I'm
do you think something is hiding in plain sight? Do you think something is hiding in plain sight? Because we can only see things in 3D.
Well, let me answer you this way. It's something hiding in plain sight. Maybe I should write a book with the title "Unseen Forces."
Yeah.
I think you should.
Of course. Of course. You're darn right. 3D brain, we see 3D stuff, we still know there's energy. We all know this. There's still energy exists we can't perceive. We know that. Other species sense it. Of course. But the question is, what is that energy? What is perceiving it? What aspect of brain function or not? So a combination thereof is utilizing some other energy. I think that's the question. What makes us unique that gives us that inner sense of self? That subjective dimension. The words don't get at it. We get that, and that's the problem too. Language is inaccurate in its description of what we're trying to explain because we don't know what we're trying to explain. So how do we have the language for it? Language, words comes out of our understanding of things. We don't understand it.
Yeah.
What do we use? So we use consciousness. That explains it. When you said consciousness, you said that word. Oh, okay, that's cool. That, we don't know what the hell we're talking about, man. We don't know what they're talking about. But we got to talk about it. You see that, and that's a conundrum. where you see, but this is it. I think we're hitting on some truth here. We're also, hitting foul balls or missing the net in soccer. I don't know anything. I love soccer, but whatever the analogy, you figure out the truth and the nonsense. But the thing is, even if there is 5% of truth of what we're talking about, holy shit. Even if there's some truth here, that's pretty cool.
Misperceiving most of the things we're seeing, or a lot of the things we're seeing, because we don't know what they are. We don't know what the reality is. We're giving them an icon because of our 3D nature, the way we are, where we're constructed, and we've totally misinterpreting a communication that might even be, somebody might be interacting with us and we're misinterpreting it.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is this, because the brain is 3D, there's a likelihood. Now, I'm not the first one that said this. Some people, but way back then, leading psychologists and others have said that the brain likely impedes our ability to see true reality. The brain likely impedes, not likely, does impede, they think, our ability to see true reality. Let's get rid of the 3D thing. I have a near-death experience. No 3D stuff. Bada bing. There's true reality. That's what they say. I'm not saying it. That's what they say. I have all the studies to show you, the anecdotal, the leading researchers, Jeff Long, and on and on and on. There's a clear NDEs too. This is critical here. This is critical, and it's so frequent, so common, and it's well recognized in the medical community. We're not talking about a phenomenon here. People have NDEs. Question is, are they seeing an alternate reality, as we mentioned earlier, of course. They see the deceased sister. And then some, besides a supreme being who said, hey, it's not your time yet. And hey, come on, let me through the pearly gates. Not maybe tomorrow. But there's baseball here. Like there's soccer here. Don't worry, there's soccer here. So the thing is, yeah. So what's that? What's that all about? Well, go ahead. You had a question. Yeah.
So the brain is, and the body is like a prison. Because at the point that you're just about to die, you're almost being freed, and your consciousness is going back out into the wave of the quantum wave.
It's very possible, and here again we're speculating on what we understand where the evidence is coming from. People are having a dying brain, so you talk to an anesthesiologist, a neuroscientist, you're going to get some gobbledygook about how the brain stem's screwing up under those circumstances of anoxia. Of course, you can make a case. And Jeff Long, who's an oncologist, who's in the documentary, knows more about that than anything. He's well-recognized renowned physician, will say all the theories that have been advanced throughout times, a whole list of them, including DMT and then some, it doesn't explain any of it. And if anybody would go, and I encourage people to look at the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation website that Jeff Long has created, and look at all the anecdotal reports of people's NDEs, over 1,000 individual reports of their experience. There's a wealth of master's theses and dissertations right there, given that incredible qualitative description of what they said was a peak experience beyond belief. With love, unconditional, that's obviously repeatedly said, we know that. But a woman, I've said this the other night, excuse me for the redundancy, she said the magnitude of love felt when I had an NDE or other kinds of peak experiences that also induce similar symptoms. And that's unique, the solution of ego. That happens, it seems, throughout all of them as a commonality. That alters consciousness, okay? It's related, I think. So she says, the unconditional love, the only way I could describe it is like a mother looking into the eyes of her first newborn for the first time, magnified 10 million times. And that doesn't get at it, not close. So how do you find a word that depicts that? Right. But it is, so you hear these bits and pieces of anecdotal evidence. Science doesn't know what to do with it. People like you and I talk about these things, but it means something. It does. And you can't ignore it. because it's those kinds of similarities to these kinds of interactions, whether or not it's a morphing light in the sky that Bledsoe puts on videos, which I love that he does. And this man is, for some reason, he's an antenna. I don't know why. His family is. It seems to run in families. So Gary Nolan, that's who we mentioned before, says to me, Bob, it's familiar. He's doing research at Harvard now. We see the brains of experiencers and psychics, I may have mentioned it earlier, have enhanced neural connectivity. And I did mention it, excuse me. What does it mean? I don't know. Inborn error, inborn antenna. Is there some
Did they have it from
logic
birth,
rationale for it? Huh?
Did they have it from birth, or was it something that an experience?
Well, yeah, great. Exactly. That's my question too. Does having an experience, a PE, cause that alteration? Like I know a little bit about the brain. I can't help it. Like neuroplasticity, the brain can regenerate itself, even regardless of age. You see neuroplasticity even in 60s and 70s years old. That brain damage. So learning occurs, and you can't create new cells. That's a quantum process. Brain's a quantum process. Interesting, huh? It is. So is photosynthesis and other things in nature. Why can't the brain be a quantum process? We're developing quantum computers, and the brain is still miles beyond any quantum computer. How can it not be a quantum process? So space. Yeah. How can it not be related? How can it not an external energy be interacting with this? How can it not? We'll figure it out, but it's frustrating. We're on the cusp here. We'll figure that out. We all know that. I think we all know that. Or maybe, I don't know what the word is. Maybe it's God. I don't know. We use it's the same damn thing, maybe. What are we talking about here? We're talking about it given the knowledge we have and the tech we have. So that's how we describe it instead of drawing it on cave walls 40,000 years ago. And if the government, the DOD, the Navy, whoever it is, knows the answer, and I think somebody does, they're intelligent, they're in control, we don't know what to do, they play cat and mouse, who knows? You think they're going to tell the public on the 6 o'clock news that guess what, everybody? Breaking news. The president wants to talk to you. Ladies and gentlemen, you know where I'm going, of course. There's a light phenomena. Hey, they're smart. They interact with us. They could appear as grays. They could do this, that. Heads up, maybe, wear a shield, be on the lookout. But I'm sorry, have a nice evening. Okay? Now, I think they know something possibly like that. How clear it is, I don't know. I'm speculating a little out of the box.
If anyone knows,
you're with me, or is this too left field? I don't know. No, I don't think they should share that with the public. I fully for disclosure. I am fully. But then, if that is true, what's the stock market going to do when it opens Monday morning? Not that I'm a materialist, but people panic. Your point is there's a way to do it. I'm not saying announce it or, you got to, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Papers are written on it. How to gradually, painlessly as possible, make people adapt to the idea. I'm not saying that, automatically in the UAP report, tell it like it is. You know what I'm saying to you? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's what
you're going to cause a peak experience in everybody if you say, that light in the sky could interact with you. So everybody's walking around at night. You know what I'm saying? I can only imagine what the outfall will be with everything. I can only imagine. So the thing is, we have to disclose that. Yeah, I'm not saying don't disclose. Do it purposefully, carefully, but they're not going to do that. And they're not going to do it, but they should. But in the right way. And you got to be very careful, how you do it, because people are waking up to that fact, don't you see? And they're asking the government for answers, and the government, whoever, gives you a little report that says, "Oh yeah, something exists. So we're on the lookout. It's not, it could be dangerous. Don't worry about it." And everybody goes to sleep for the next big thing. We talk about it a little more, and then you get a little political stuff and disinformation, and who's telling what, where, what's true, what's not, and it's room for thought. I love it. I'm not knocking it. I love it. We all have to talk about everything, from making right angle turns at what 100 miles per hour in a tic tac, what looks like a tic tac, and Maybe somebody took something home with them they regret. It'll be besides the memory of the occasion. But how does it change people transpersonally? And do we have data that says it in a pronounced, significant way, similar to other ways? And we have to know how to allow people to cope with it better, how to treat them from a professional standpoint. That too is such a critical factor. How do we deal with people who have spiritual emergencies from all walks, let alone UAPs? Integrate what just happened. I just saw another reality, I'm convinced. What do you do with that? A great touched me. What do I do with that? A 4-year-old can speak 6 languages. What do I do with that? It does make sense to me, but I look at the people. Rudy Shields, astrophysicist at Harvard, a friend of mine. We did a few papers together. UAPs are quantum amplifiers, and they interact with people using quadrupole radiation. Great, but okay, Rudy, can you say that again? I can't hear you. Okay, where are you? How old are you, Rudy? How you feeling, man? Yeah, Bob. These UAPs, they're quantum amplifiers. You say quantum? Yeah, quantum, Bob. Quadrupole radiation. Well, I looked up quadrupole radiation. Well, I'm not a physicist, nor do I pretend to be. I tried it. I try to conceptually understand when these more brilliant minds by far than I, can comprehend. I'm not a physicist, and read about it. I don't make sense. It's light energy. It's a little bit more sophisticated than dipole radiation. That's about all I know. But the point is, that's where a lot of these astrophysicists are going with this. You see, looking at theories mathematically derived, unique to their discipline, and applying it to the phenomena. So they see light, and that light, because it's Susie Hansen said in her major, are you familiar with Susie Hansen and her abduction experience? It's fairly well known. It's been books written and all. And Rudy has considers many of the kinds of experiences that people have regarding light, and as in terms of it interacting with the phenomena. And he's convinced that it is transmitted by whomever via the brain, interacting with the brain, being some form of light energy. And we do see, however, interestingly, evidence from neuroscientists, physicists who study the brain, also coming up with similar conclusions, but from bottom up. You see, Rudy's coming top down, is he not? Bottom up, light energy, biophotons, synchronized universe model, relates to torsion energy. Torsion energy may be a carrier wave for biophotons. Like the water carrier wave for a skier, in a way, biophotons are seen, and it modifies. The strength of biophotons coming out of cells in the brain modify their strength based on emotion. I meditate, I get good reaction in my emissions. They're starting to quantify it, okay? It's starting to. We see, trying to figure out how an analysis of this energy from the body, biophotonic emissions from the body, can inform medicine, if at all possible, about the psychological state of the individual. People who are in fear, depressed, anxiety, have a different kind of chakra structure. When they talk about chakras and all that, it could be some very well quantitative scientific truth to that. That could be. That's what a lot of these neuropsychiatrists are going. You understand? There's something to chakras. I have no doubt. So, of course, a lot of scientists have no doubt. Why? Their experiences. They're coming out of the clouds, especially as they retire. I know them, a lot of them. Yeah. And now their experiences. So let's put what you guys know at it. So it could be wrong, it could be right, but they're playing around with this. Biophotons and chakras. Now, let's see. If you're angry, you're depressed, you have this personality disorder, you see your chakras go like this in the biophotons, or they appear a different color. That's where they're going. So I don't have to question my patient. So what do you think of your mother, your father, and why do you think pink elephants flying around you, all that sort of stuff. It's using an objective tool. That's what they're trying to explain. Trying to add science to psychiatry and diagnosis of medical issues associated with the mind. And thus, it cuts a lot out of the way, a lot of the clutter. It could take a year to figure out what the personality problem is. He says, that's where they're going. They'd like to go there. Question is, I'd like to see biophotonic changes occur in experiences. You can't do pre-post though. Okay, let's do it on you. Let's take a biophoton. Well, you say you interacted with a Jonathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said you interacted with a something earlier, did you not?
I've interacted quite a bit, mate.
I'd love
a few things. Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that. It would be great to do a pre-post on you, although you probably adapted given the frequency of your interactions. Let's compare, 2 years whenever you didn't have it versus post. And that goes back to your question earlier. Do these peak experiences, again, cause physiologic changes in the brain? Possibly. Right. I think we may have addressed it. Or is it the other way around? Are there innate physiologic changes in the brain that are familial in nature? My mother was a psychic. She interacted with beings. Her dad, it just runs in family. This inside kind of weird antenna, so to speak.
Do you think rare blood
does it come that way, where it's genetically derived, huh?
Do you think that rare bloods are involved as well? By any chance, I've got the rarest blood group on Earth, basically.
RH negative.
RH negative, and also another fairly famous experiencer has got exactly the same. I just asked him, "What blood group are you, by the way, mate?" And he told me, and we hadn't discussed it, and he had exactly the same blood group, and I was just found that very, very interesting.
RH negative. You run the risk of RH incompatibility with your offspring.
AB negative.
Yeah. All right. And so you get a little, you run the risk of jaundice in your offspring. Anyway, but you get your screen for that, of course, but everybody is for that. There's talk, of course, again, no hard evidence that those people who are experiencers do have a higher incidence of Rh negative, blood type. Mary Rodwell talks about it. Another geneticist talks about it. Who knows? Maybe. I mean, you can start looking at all variables. Maybe more people who are abducted have, I don't know, blue eyes. I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe not. I can only speculate. But that doesn't. There may be other more important biomarkers, let's put it that way, than that. And it wouldn't surprise me if it is. So, continue.
Well,
what are your thoughts on reincarnation, Bob? Do you believe in reincarnation and cycles?
I haven't had any personal recollections of past lives. I fall back to Ian Stevenson, the leading researcher in reincarnation from the University of Virginia, who published many articles on about 350 children, ages 5 to 8, 9. It appears in those who are very young for some reason. It's interesting. And he looked at these kids, and obviously they obtained information, they expressed information that, according to him, through thorough analysis, interviewing anecdotal evidence and all the pitfalls associated with that. But based on his careful approach, and I've read his studies, I've incorporated in my book, Life After Death, as anecdotal as it is, as the fact that it comes from very young populations and the language problems there. Of course, you can cut it up in many different ways, but maybe the most remarkable thing that he thought about his reincarnation study, other than the confirmation of facts that the children expressed that the parents couldn't believe that they should know, the frequency of that, it was kind of unusual. But what got him more than anything was the birthmarks and genetic malformations of the bodies of these kids. This, to him, was the more compelling evidence. And I'm sure people who are familiar with research know this. The kid, for instance, would have a birthmark maybe at one side of the stomach and with an exit wound, another birthmark where it kind of should be based on its angle if somebody pierced the person with a sword. What he found was a much higher incidence, as silly as it may sound, I know, much higher incidence of that sort of thing. That related to their experience. The kid said in the story, whatever year, wherever, I was speared with a sword. And then Ian Stevenson looks and sees a physiologic confirmation of their memory. Kind of interesting. Or a kid is born with malformed hand, as he said in one case. the child happens to recollect, I forget how old, 5 or 6, that the child suffered a hand injury, chopped off or whatever. But he made these kinds of analogies. Whether or not he made a story out of it, I don't know. But he came to the final conclusion. I can only fall back again on based on his evidence. What do I know? Let's go to the expert. And that's all I can share with you. He said the evidence to him was highly suggestive. He didn't want to lose tenure at the University of Virginia, I bet, so he's not going to say conclusively, everybody, president of the college, we live all the, immortal, the body, we fade to black, the screen fades to black and that sort of thing. And when the hard drive crashes, but we live on. He's not going to go so far as to say that. So he couched it scholarly so that it's publishable by saying the results highly suggest. Look at his articles. They're very interesting. Many, many individual cases where he goes into great depth. And you wonder how the child can know so, unless the parents are somehow setting it up somehow. He discounted that. How we control for that, I'm not sure. But it brings to mind more recent times. What's the child's name? Lindgren? Help me out. Lindgren. And he believes ever since he could talk, he kept expressing what happened to him as a pilot in World War II.
Yeah.
Right? Go figure. And parents, again, not out to make a buck, so they say, and no way he could know, especially at that young age. Remarkable. Is that the brain? It goes back to the initial question: what's consciousness, or is that the brain? Maybe there's some phenomenological aspect of brain function we don't know about that can do that sort of stuff, because we know so little about the brain. But we're finding out again the quantum processes of the brain, and that says a lot with futuristic science, so to speak, and how we need to integrate. Let's not get into that. I talk about that too much. I'm getting punchy here, on the East Coast. So it's much later for you, gentlemen. Huh? It's 4 hours for you. Much later, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
10 past 9 for us. We won't keep you much longer, Bob.
It's okay. It's all right. I'm good.
We just tell you about Ingo Swann. Ingo Swann was a big believer in reincarnation, and he actually told I chat with Hal Puthoff. You probably realise that from our chats in the group, Bob. But he basically told Hal that he believed he would know that who he was going to be when he came back. He would know who he was in his previous existence. That he knew he was Ingo. He was enlightened enough, he believed, that when he went into his next existence, he would know he used to be Ingo Swann. And I said to Hal, in that case, has Ingo ever knocked on your door? Because obviously Ingo died. Has he ever come around and knocked on your door since then and said hi? And he said, not yet.
Yeah,
I found that quite amusing.
Keep us posted.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted if he ever tells me he turned up.
Yeah. Well, Nancy Duturk, who's in our documentary, she's in the trailer. She's very well known, writes wonderful books. Look her up, please. And Rebecca Hardcastle Wright, Exo Consciousness. The work she does is tremendous. Both of them are already have been interviewed, and Nancy was a mentor of Ingo Swann. They were very close as friends and professionals, and he taught her remote viewing. And Nancy, she can do it. It's quite interesting. But the point here again, we need to gather that evidence and incorporate it, as anecdotal as it may be, although the government, I'm sure, whoever involved, utilized their skills and others to the best that they could. And the results, from what I hear, not that I believe everything Hal Puthoff says and others, but they had some degree of success that they otherwise wouldn't, unless they were able to have that kind of skill in Project Stargate. Who knows? Edgar Mitchell, who he did the ESP experiments, and I was told that it worked out when he was up in Apollo 15, the sixth person to walk on the moon, and we mentioned him earlier. Here again, anecdotal. This is here aspect of this business. I don't, you kind of like share stories and it gets lost in the shuffle and the misinterpretation when it's handed down. You know how that all goes. But I know somebody who knows Edgar Mitchell very well. Greatest respect for Edgar Mitchell. And according to this person, I'm not going to mention the name, and don't take it literally again. Edgar Mitchell shared a story. When they were approaching the moon, they saw a long cigar-shaped cylindrical object, shiny, metallic. This is about third-hand information. Keep that in mind. They took pictures.
Bob, I'll tell you something.
Go on.
Oh,
and
they followed
a picture taken.
And they followed around the moon, thinking they'd see it, and of course, they never saw the film, obviously, and that's about that. But the things like that, I don't know if it's true, and maybe you know more than I. This is again third-hand information. I don't want to spread rumors, and I apologize if it's not true. But again, the source I'm getting it from, again, you got to go out into the field, talk to experiences and others who get at the heart of it to try to put the pieces together and win this chess game that's, I think, unwinnable in this generation. Finish your thought, please, about what you were going to say. If that picture should emerge, that would add a little bit more credibility, don't you think, to my story based on the source that I got it from. Kind of interesting, I think. Yeah. And so the point is this too. Edgar Mitchell, why, given what we're talking about with his epiphany that he described, the overview effect, seeing Earth, having the ESP experiment, maybe having this experience too, maybe. Yeah. What do you think it did to him? Well, let me tell you what it did to him. It gave him a peak experience. So what did he do with the peak experience? What did he do? He developed, again, that Institute of Noetic Sciences. Holy shit. You understand? You got everybody understand what that is? Look it up. Ions, IONS, and look at the kind of research they're doing. Mm-hmm. Consciousness, ESP, ions. Dean Radin in a documentary. Diane Hennessy Powell in a documentary. You understand where I'm going with Dave and I going with this? I wrote the book UFO Phenomenon, so I was interested in some of the, the Project Blue Book and Condign and all of those from that era, just to provide a little history we all should be familiar with. Even though we haven't advanced any in our understanding of the phenomenon, just about, maybe unless unacknowledged special access programs have, they likely have, but the public hasn't, I don't think, other than experiencing it in different ways and not getting any answers. And we're left in the dark and suffering in many ways as a result from lack of guidance about it. Anyway, I just stay away from that because I don't know what to believe. What's the next story that's going to come out? Of course, we're going to find to be disinformation or a hoax, or that's the way you follow it to go. So when you talk about the Wilson document, I don't know. I know, and some people talk about that and say it's a major breakthrough, and and we have evidence and the crash sources and aliens, but I believe it when I see it, man. I believe they turned off the nukes. I believe they intervened this way. Do they crash the saucer? Yeah, maybe. I'm not saying that Roswell didn't happen. Or if there is a saucer there, those dudes put it there just to bring it to give it a little teaspoon, maybe. Hey, guess what? Learn from it. Hey, a next generation we're gonna give you something else. So it'll be whatever it is. Maybe we'll appeal. The 52, the buzzing of Washington D.C. People forget about that. Yeah. That's quite an event. They want a message. If people forget about those lights in the sky around I talked to a pilot. I talked to a pilot at a UFO here in Southwest Florida, maybe 102 years old, that kind of age, but could barely hear. It'd be the most difficult communication, but he chased one of these things back then in 52, and he gave enough detail. They weren't from here. At least nothing comes close to what they had at the time, but he flew what they had at the time. Whatever it was, that was the most advanced. He said, Bob. And he gave me, I forget the details, but it was, he was convinced. He was describing it to me. Lights. This was the right light. We couldn't keep up with it. It was doing zigzags and the stuff we hear all the time that plasma does or the intelligence does or everything in between does.
Bob, you've been talking a lot about peak experiences, and you used William Shatner as an example, a good example of an individual peak experiences. peak experience. But can a peak experience on an individual level, such as Shatner, bleed into what they call the collective consciousness, a sort of herd immunity for ideas? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. We're all interconnected. Collective consciousness. We're all interconnected. That's quantum physics. Yeah. We see it in the Global Consciousness Project. We see it experimentally.
Just the act of us sitting here talking about this is...
Yeah, we are one.
Great.
We're building it.
Listen, why do you think, why do you think I'm pretty tired? That's why I can't think straight this whole time. But no, it's all right. It's all right. The thing is that the subject matter, you guys, it's so stimulating and very interesting to me. That's right. Why are we sitting here? Why am I not going to bed right now when I should be? The thing is, I'm sorry to complain. I'm not. We're good. I'm with you as long as you want. Yeah, for whatever that provides. But yeah, why are we sitting here talking about it? And maybe that's the issue. And maybe that's consciousness. It drives us to talk about something we can't explain, to raise our consciousness. You understand? It's a metaphorical, it's the law of identity. But it's what you're doing is right. But everybody shouldn't be consumers because we all make that error in inductive reasoning. We ascribe to ideas that are consistent with our beliefs. And disagree with those that are inconsistent. That's why we have the physical people and the non-physical, and we don't integrate like we have this religion, that religion. We don't, there's good and bad in each. I'm not saying non-physical. I'm not saying that's the end. Good and bad in each. Let's try to integrate it. Let's try to make sense out of the pieces, but looking for a needle in the haystack. Good luck to us. We're throwing bearskins, stone knives at it. We might be a little 66 years from Kitty Hawk or then some from stepping foot on the moon, but come on, we all understand. And that's the frustrating thing about it. And maybe we would participate it beyond. I get it. If you ascribe to what people are telling me, I should interpret what they say literally. The thing is, we got to be careful what we hear and ascribe to what things that may not be consistent with our beliefs. We're not always right. Here's the ego dissolution part. We think we're right all the time, and we get in a lot of trouble that way. I have. We do it every day. Bar a pair of shoes, everything we do. So we make these errors consistently, let alone on trying to understand something so complex and controversial as what we're talking about. So it's and you try to find the science to match the subjective experience, and I see it. And that's what we're talking about. The fact that we're talking about it is an area. It shows that it is a collective thing. It's increasing in popularity. CE5s are increasing in popularity, as we mentioned earlier with Mike Merberg. We're going to Saturday. I never thought I'd be going to something like this, let alone film it with Dave Beatty, an Emmy Award winner. Who tell me about how life can change, right? And now I'm trying to shoot these lights, right? And then I'm reading a book. And before that, a few years, I saw Lights in Sedona, Orange Orbs. So I wrote the book. Then I had a shared death experience. So I wrote the book Life After Death, Analysis of the Evidence. Then I had a Kundalini experience. Knocked my socks off, but it was beautiful. Yeah. I loved it. People might have thought I was a little nuts for a while. I don't want to go there, but absolutely fantastic.
What book did you write about the Kundalini in?
Unseen Forces, the integration of science, reality, and you. It's based... Yes, interesting. And here again, the psychological community doesn't know what to do with people who have these kinds of experiences. They come in all shapes and sizes. So you go to professional help. You're feeling great anxiety. Why? Because they interact with UAP, whatever it was. You can't explain it. And the last thing you want to hear from a professional who you feel confident in knowing what is wrong with you and is going to fix you from this anxiety and questioning reality and what happened to you, because you have PTSD now. You can't think straight. Yeah. And the psych it seems like a severe form of dissociation. We got a problem here. It's going to take a long time to fix. I'm going to have to put you on a new drug that it has only 17 side effects, but I think it'll get at the problem. So let's stay on that for 6 months, and I'll see you then.
And it's not cheap.
It happens. I'm being flippant, but it happens. Yeah. I know it happens. And it happens too frequently. You know where I'm going. I don't want to go down that road. but it's an important one. It's an important journey. I'd like to address that in the documentary too. We have to, again, give the individual experiences more attention. Support. There are support groups. Go to experiences that know something about counseling, professional psychological therapy, who have that unique insight. They need that unique insight. How could they understand you if they don't understand the issue? You got to, I think you'll have better success. Let me put it that way. I'm not saying a non-experience is not going to help you. That's wrong for me to say. I think it's better if you identify with a like-minded soul who's had something similar, and they're out there. They are.
Yeah.
You get.
This has been a great dip in the toe with your knowledge, it says, mate. I've really enjoyed myself here. Do you wanna just say something about fundraising, Dave?
Well,
indeed.
As awkward as it sounds, we need money. We need support. We need money to make this all happen. I think you know the story. The trailer. Go to consciousnessfilm.info, consciousnessfilm.info. Whatever you could support, $1.50. Just whatever if you only resonate. I'm not begging for money. Don't misinterpret me. I'm going after the rich dude again. Like I say it all the time. 1 month to live, deep pockets. That's what I want. If you have 50 cents, I'll take it. You know why? Only if you resonate, because then you think you're doing something in terms of shifting the needle, which is what we're doing. If you agree with that mission, it's not about being a star. I've done stuff. I'm getting on in life. It's not about ego. I don't think it is. Maybe 10, 20 years ago. If you resonate, help. We need it. We want to send an important message, and we think we have. We think we can contribute something great in the form of a message to humanity, if they want it.
And the media landscape is so different these days that there's documentaries like this are no longer held in the hands of gatekeepers who are worried about the bottom line. And I think YouTube, GoFundMe, all these things is only going to lead to a bigger, brighter future.
Hey, listen, I can't thank you, both of you, enough for your support and your kindness, and more importantly, doing what you're doing. You too are to be commended greatly. So thank you very much. I look forward to our continued conversation. Be happy to be back anytime, guys. And
I look forward to Unseen Forces. I'll tell you what. I'm going to read that.
And not that it has the answers. If it makes you think a little, that's what it's about.
Food for thought.
Thank you very much.
I'll be getting all 3 books after this.
Oh, I might disappoint you because I can be a little dry. I think they're great books. Obviously, I'm biased, and a lot of people like it. But it could be a little factual. You want facts?
Oh, yeah.
You want the facts? You want the fact? Read it.
Yeah,
You'll get the
handle
facts.
the truth.
You'll get the fact. Yeah. Okay. Hey, enjoy. Thank you so much.
You too, Bob. Thanks, guys.
But I'm sorry for this.
Thanks,
I had this pulled, weeks ago. Nothing I could do about it. So not in my hands. Good night.
No worries.
All right.
Thanks,
Bob. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.